Hi Bookish friends, I'm Jackie from the Reading Wordsmith and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to be diving into some of my bookish favorites. I was very kindly tagged to do this by a few different people, specifically Isabel, Michelle, and David, so I will leave all of their channels linked in the description below. Please go check them out, check out their videos that they made so you can learn a little bit about their reading taste as well, and thank you so much for tagging me. I can't wait to dive into all of these prompts. So the first prompt asks, what are 5 books that define your tastes? First, I have to mention The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I've reread this entire trilogy like 4 or 5 different times. I think the first 2 books I've reread at least 5 times, and then maybe Mockingjay has been a little bit less than that, but I have a very deep personal connection to these stories. I like all the political intrigue happening in here and how Katniss grows and comes of age in this world with The Hunger Games. I feel like it's really interesting the plot device that The Hunger Games play, especially in the first 2 books, which is one of the things that I felt was lacking in Mockingjay, just in my personal opinion. But I think this describes my taste because I like books that are very plot driven and have some political intrigue. That's something that always fascinates me, and I love the dystopian element in this one. The romances and the relationships that build between the characters is always very special to me, and I just love learning about the world of Panem. This series has so much nostalgia for me, and it's something that I think really defines my tastes. Another book that I think really defines my taste is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, and really just the entire Mortal Instruments and the whole Shadowhunters universe. I think my favorite series is The Infernal Devices, so I'm going to talk about this book today, but all of those have shaped me. I think just the historical fantasy aspects to this and this blend between these historical London and this like Victorian-esque period with the fantasy elements of these half human, half angel creatures, and all of that really works well in here. This is one of the few instances where the love triangle works for me, and I love that this really mixes fantasy, historical elements, and romance. I feel like it does a great job at all 3 of them, and I think it's pretty rare for me to find books that really feature all these genres in a way that I absolutely love to pieces. This lives in my brain rent-free all the time. I love the series to bits, and I really think it has cultivated a lot of my love for historical fantasies, for romance, and really added a lot to that. It got me more interested in wanting to read more urban fantasies and even high fantasy, so that's something that I always credit the Shadowhunter universe for doing for me. Another book that defines my reading taste is In the Time of the Butterflies. This is a historical fiction, and you can kind of see where a lot of things are falling, to see some of the similar themes in all these books. But this is set in the 1960s, and we're following 3 sisters called Las Mariposas. That's their like code name. They are living in the Dominican Republic, and they're growing up in this time under the dictatorship there under Trujillo, and they all basically form part of the resistance against this. I think it's a deeply moving read. I don't often see this book talked about on bookish spaces, but I really love this book so much. I think you definitely need to read it. It really gives you a sense of what life must have been like in the Dominican Republic at this time, and they're really speaking of their experiences, the traumas they felt, all being told through the lens and voice of one of the sisters. And I think it was very deeply moving. Highly recommend this one if you haven't checked it out. Of course, when talking about books that have shaped my reading taste, I must include Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. This mixes some historical fiction aspects with fantasy. In this one, there is some time travel going on, and I really love time travel stories. I think this was the series that really got me interested in wanting to read more of that, and I think time-bending things are things that really intrigue me because I love the series so much. This has a lot of day-in-the-life moments, which also really defines that aspect of my reading taste. I tend to like a lot of books that feature a day in the life, like you're living with the characters and connecting with them. There are plot-driven parts of this, but it's more character driven, and that's something that I've grown to learn about myself, is that I like some plot, but I really need to have character driven stories. We are set in a bunch of different time eras, so we're set in post-World War II in that sort of era, and we're following a World War II nurse who's kind of trying to recuperate from that and travels back in time. So we also see the Scottish Uprising and the Jacobite Rebellion in that time, and then the fall at Culloden and the Revolutionary War in the Americas. It's set across so many different timelines and features such a wide range of characters, which I really love. It got me interested in stories with so many different characters and perspectives and points of view, and just broad reaching spanning series. So Outlander will always hold a special place in my heart for all of these reasons, and it's just one of my favorite series of all time. Another book that I think really defines my reading taste is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. This is part of the Skyland series, and it's following Hendrix Berry, and she's a very successful entertainment executive. She's never really had time for a relationship, and she also has to focus on taking care of her mother, who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and has to deal a lot with the fallout of that and the complications of it. It's very deeply moving. I love this book so much. It's the romance between her and a man named Maverick Bell, and they decide to pursue a relationship despite all the obstacles in their way, and he's just such a supportive character. I think he's like one of the first black billionaires in this universe, and it was just such a moving romance. I love that we explored a lot of deeper themes and topics in here, especially with the inclusion of Alzheimer's and family dynamics, kind of delving into what the role of a woman should be. I love that she's chosen to be childless by choice, and that Maverick doesn't really put that pressure on Hendrix to want to have a family or to force her to limit her career ambitions for the relationship. It's just a deeply moving story. I love romance books. I love books that have mental health representation and neurodivergence in them, and this, I think, really combines those aspects in a beautiful light and defines some of my reading taste. I just love how he never really forces her to back down from her career ambitions to prioritize the relationship. This book means so much to me. I love romance stories, and I love stories with neurodivergent representation, so I think this is a great one to categorize my reading tastes. Okay, so the next prompt asks, what are some books that you were obsessed with during different eras of your life? So one book that I was really obsessed with, and actually I was obsessed with his whole series, was the Selection series. This is The Selection by Kiera Cass. I read this like as a teenager, and it just came for me at the right time. It was during all of the like dystopian book craze, and after the time when I read The Hunger Games, I was really seeking a lot of stories that were similar to that because I had enjoyed that so much, and this was just perfect. It's kind of like The Bachelor meets The Hunger Games. There are 25 different girls that are vying for a prince's attention in this, and basically they're trying to be the next queen of their land, and this world is set up with a bunch of different casts, sort of like a caste system, and I thought that was really intriguing. I think this is really great to read with your brain turned off a little bit, which is something that I really appreciated about it at the time. I don't know that these hold up as well today, but they were really great for me at that time and hold a lot of nostalgia for me. I will always look at the series fondly, and I will probably reread these at some point just because of those nostalgic vibes. It was just everything I was looking for at that time, something super quick and bingeable to read, and gave me a little bit of those Hunger Games feels, but also some romance, which I was really looking for. Another book that I was obsessed with, and I was really obsessed with this whole series, is The Land of Stories. This is the third book, I believe, which is the only one I have in my collection. The rest I was reading from the library at the time. These are all middle grade stories. They're like epic fantasy / fairy tale retellings, and this really gave me my love of fairy tale retellings. I love this series so much. I want to go back and reread the first few books because I don't think I ever finished it. It was coming out at a time when it was perfect for me, but as each of the books, took around a year to come out, by the time we got to the fourth and fifth books in the series, I just wasn't as interested and I didn't have as much time for reading and all of that, but it's still a series I'd love to revisit. This follows twins named Alex and Connor, who kind of travel through like this wishing well thing, which is like similar to Alice falling down the rabbit hole, and then they enter this like fairy tale land that works a little bit differently from how we expect it to based off of Disney movies or the Grimm's novels, and I just love this so much. I love that they go on these quest journeys here to try to help these fairy tale characters, and their goal, especially in the first book, is just to try to make it home and find a way to get back to normality, and I love the juxtaposition between those things. This is a series that I was obsessed with, that I binged so fast, and I was super engrossed with all the characters and what was happening in here. This was definitely a fun ride, and I love taking this little walk down memory lane and revisiting this from my middle grade years. Some other other books that I was obsessed with when I was younger are American Girl books. I really remember adoring these and I would fly through them. Particularly, my favorite stories were the Marie Grace and Cecile books. So basically, Marie Grace is this shy newcomer who's just returned to New Orleans with her father, and Cecile is a free young black woman in this time, and it's pretty rare because it's the 1800s in New Orleans, but there were some free people of color at that time, and it's really about their friendship navigating all the challenges that come with it, but all the joy that they have and all their adventures. They deal with the yellow fever epidemic, they help care for orphans, and they learn a lot about their community and having courage in the face of all these plights. And I love this series 2 bits so much. I've read some other American Girl books as well. Recently, I've read some of the Samantha books because I was just interested in reading more of them, and I think they provide so much value for younger readers. I love playing with American Girl dolls when I was younger, and I loved all of these stories and the history aspects of them. I think that's where my love for history really started to grow and blossom, and I just think that these stories can be really helpful for young readers, but also still hold true and still provide a lot of value for more experienced readers. They're such beautiful stories and I just recommend them. But Marie Grace and The Orphans really sticks in my mind. Meet Marie Grace, Meet Cecile, all of those books just always come to mind. And I definitely remember that era. That was, I think, a little bit before The Land of Stories and reading those middle grade books, as I was transitioning from reading picture books slowly into the middle grade category. Another book, but really it's the author's works that resonate with me, is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. All of Elizabeth Acevedo's books have really resonated for me, and especially her young adult ones. Her adult novel, not as much. It wasn't a big favorite for me, but my favorite of hers have been her young adult ones. So The Poet X definitely has to be my top favorite, and that follows Xiomara, who is a Harlem teen growing up, and she discovers slam poetry as an outlet for herself. She lives with a very strict and religious mother, and this kind of is a dynamic that is very difficult because it creates a lot of tension, and she's trying to deal with all of this also while she's navigating her sexuality and her identity as a Dominican American. And I love the journey that she goes on in this and how she secretly is able to join her school's poetry club and finds a way to challenge the society around her and her family's expectations by performing in this spoken word format, and is able to form a secret relationship. I think it's a lot about Xiomara coming into her own. Coming of age stories really resonate with me, and especially at the time when I first found this book and her writing, it was right around the time when I was coming of age, around the time leading up to the pandemic, so I think this was really good. I also read Clap When You Land, and I think that's my second favorite. That follows two sisters, one of them who lives in the DR and one of them who lives in New York, and they are related through their father. They are half siblings, but they have no idea that their dad had two different families, and it's a lot of them navigating that fallout. I really love that one so much. Very well crafted, and I like how she's able to tap into the emotions and really make you care for these characters deeply. I've also read With the Fire on High and enjoyed that one. I think that one's a little bit lighter. We have a young adult who is Dominican American, and she is a teen mom, so she's handling a lot of those challenges while also trying to pursue her ambition or her desire to become a chef. And I love all of the travel aspect in that one, her still being able to pursue her dreams, and the support that she has from her grandmother, which kind of contrasts some of the other books that Acevedo has written. She has a very supportive and loving grandmother, although she doesn't really have any other family, and she also has a little girl, I believe it is. But I think that it was really well crafted, and I have just really enjoyed Elizabeth Acevedo's writing. It's not something that I would say I'm gravitating towards as much right now, just because she hasn't published all that many books, but I will still keep my eyes open for any Elizabeth Acevedo releases. Okay, the next question asks, what are your favorite genres? So I think I've covered this a few times, but I'll cover it again here. I really love historical fiction, romance, and fantasy. Not necessarily in that particular order. I feel like the order of these changes all the time, and I can't pick one favorite out of these three. I will say that 2025 was a pretty difficult year for me with fantasy books, and I struggled to read those and enjoy them. So I would say my current favorites are leaning more towards historical fiction and romance. These genres really resonate with me. I am a big history lover and I love studying different cultures and things. And I think historical fiction is really great at diving into the past and seeing what messages are kind of universal and still carry forward and have meaning to today. I love connecting with characters of the past. I'm just deeply fascinated by people who live in such a different way from how we live our modern lives. I also really enjoy romance because I think it's so fun. It's easy to dive into these stories, but yet there are still some romances that are very layered and complex. There is a common misconception that romance books are just about smut or they're just about spice level, and there are some books like that, but romance is such a broad-ranging genre. There's so many different types of relationships that exist, and I think part of the reason why this is one of my favorite genres is because you see such a wide variety of relationships being explored, not just romantic or sexual entanglements, but we also see friendships a lot of times in these stories, and they're very character driven, which I think describes a lot of why I love romance books so much, because I adore character driven novels. And then fantasy has been a favorite of mine since I was a child. I would say that last year I read a lot of romances that didn't really work for me, so I do struggle sometimes with books that try to blend genres with romance and fantasy in particular, because that's such a buzzed and hyped about thing right now. I think that they don't all work for me, and that's something that I've just come to accept over time throughout 2025 as I was experimenting with these. I think some romantasy could work for me, but I have to be more selective of the ones that I end up choosing. Fantasy has such an appeal for me because you're able to explore a new land or very different dynamics. There's often supernatural elements, so there could be things like dragons or shadow hunters or just other creatures in here, and I love it so much. I love animals. I love any connection to that and to nature. And I feel like fantasy can often have some elemental things in there as well, which really appeals to me, so fantasy is another favorite. Okay, prompt number 4 asks, what are some of your favorite authors? So some of the people that I've been mentioning in the earlier prompts, so Suzanne Collins, I think that she always has something interesting to say in her dystopian stories, and I will read anything that she writes. I think there is a lot of deeper meaning and great character growth in her books. I also really like Cassandra Clare for the reasons that I kind of mentioned before. She is a fantasy author that reignited my love for reading in 2019, and I pretty much binged through a majority of her books, through almost all the books in the Shadowhunter Chronicles, and I can't wait for any new releases she comes out with. I think she is a favorite author of mine because she made me fall back in love with reading and realize that it is something that I do really enjoy, and it also reminds me that fantasy is a genre that I truly deeply love. Elizabeth Acevedo is another favorite author of mine. She writes a lot of contemporary stories, and I just deeply resonate with her books because they follow Latinx characters, and I love the character growth and development in them. She is able to really make you feel connected to these young adults and to their emotions, and I love those aspects to her stories. I also have recently loved Recitative by Toni Morrison. I think Toni Morrison will end up being a favorite author of mine. I think her writing is very interesting, and I love how she's able to take her readers on a journey and make them question things about themselves. And then Sabaa Tahir is another new writer that I think will be a favorite. All My Rage moved me to tears. It was so deeply powerful, impactful, and I just can't recommend the book enough. We follow a couple of Pakistani American teenagers who are coming of age and facing a lot of stereotyping and just systemic issues related to their identities as Muslim people and as immigrants from Pakistan. And I really love this book so much. I think she did a good job of exploring these deep topics, and I'm curious to read her fantasy novels, which is what Sabaa Tahir is most known for. I would say another favorite author is Frederick Bachman, and I have also cried a lot with his stories. There are things that are deeply personal for me and have those connections. He's covered topics like Alzheimer's and dementia, and there's a lot of mental health representation in his stories, which I appreciate. Books that feature a lot of neurodivergence and give good representation for that will always be a winner for me. Frederick Bachman's storytelling also just has a way of immersing you into his writing, and I think it's something that many people could really connect with. I'm definitely looking forward to reading more of his backlisted books. Prompt number 5 asks, what are some of your favorite forms of reading? So I think this is talking about the mediums or the ways that I read the books. I don't really know quite what it's asking, but I think it's asking if you like physical books or audiobooks or ebooks. I really love physical books, ebooks, and audiobooks. I don't know if I have a favorite form of reading. Maybe audiobooks, just because they're so convenient. You can listen to them on your commute while you're driving, and I think that I get through these a lot faster than physical books and ebooks, just naturally because I have a lot of time when I'm busy and I'm doing other tasks, and they're great for multitasking with. I also really love physical books. Ebooks are probably my least favorite of the three if I had to rank them. And then I would rank them probably like audio and physical are kind of neck and neck with each other. Physical books I enjoy because I love the act of turning pages and just holding a book in my hand as I'm reading. It was my first love, the first way that I got into reading stories and connecting with characters, and how I fell in love with the act of reading. So physical books will always be one of my favorite ways to go. I prefer it to ebook reading, even though at night ebook reading can sometimes be preferable, but I do now have a little book light, which I love to use while reading, and it makes physical reading just so much more practical for my day-to-day life. I love physical books so much, and then I would say probably my lowest ranked is maybe ebooks. I appreciate them, I like them, but I sometimes struggle to read them because I just don't feel as deeply connected with the stories. I think there's something about not turning a page that just doesn't really connect with me. And also, it sometimes feels like it takes forever to read an ebook, even though that's not the case. But because the pages are shaped like so much shorter and they're consolidated to fit on the screen, it'll tell you that you have like 1,000 pages to read for a book, and that can be really discouraging for me. I don't know. In the ebook format, I just also don't like the little swiping action that you have to do to turn pages. And I feel like you can't annotate ebooks as well or as hands-on as you could like a physical book, which is part of why I prefer physical books, because if I want to annotate that and really sit with it and explore those pages again, I prefer doing that stuff with a physical book. Okay, prompt number 6 asks, what are some of your favorite book characters? So I love Claire Fraser so much. I love Outlander, but I love her medical knowledge and her wisdom and just all of these aspects to her. She is naturally very intuitive, and I think that she's a very compassionate and empathetic healer and doctor and nurse. And I love how she is so deeply dedicated to her family and to Jamie. She doesn't really have to choose between her vocation and being a good mom and wife and having strong relationships, which I really appreciate. Claire Fraser is a powerhouse of a woman. She is very ingenious at times and has scraped through so many different situations. She's one of my favorite literary characters of all time, and I'm obsessed with her. I would definitely love to dress up as her one year, possibly for Halloween, do something themed around her because she is so cool. I also really loved Katniss Everdeen growing up. I don't know if she's necessarily a favorite character right now, but I resonated with her fiery nature and not really caring what other people wanted or expected of her. That's something that I've always deeply admired about how she's able to be truly and authentically herself, no matter what situation she found herself in. She is another great one. Some other characters that I really love are Will, Jem, and Tessa. I think of the three of them, I'm gonna say Jem. He is a literal gem. I love him in the Infernal Devices trilogy. He's just so sweet and compassionate, and you can see that he feels really deeply connected to both Will and Tessa. I love how selfless he is as a character, and he also has a deep love of music, which is something I really share. And I just connect with him so much. He is such a sweet little hero in the story, and I adore him so much. I also really enjoy the Brown sisters a lot. Specifically, I think my favorite is Eve Brown. I love her clumsiness, her relatability, and how she's just kind of been fumbling in life and struggling to figure out what she wants, but she has a lot of heart and passion, and I love all of those aspects to her. She's just a very relatable character for me. I'm also very clumsy, and I saw a lot of myself in her. She is a neurodivergent character as well, which is fun to kind of explore and learn about her journey. The next question asks, what are some of your favorite series? So I'll try to mention some ones that I haven't really talked about for the other prompts. I really like the Poldark Saga. That's a historical fiction series, and it spans so many different years. We span decades in the story, and it's set in Cornwall. Montreal in the late 1700s into the 1800s, post-Revolutionary War, immediately post-Revolutionary War actually. And we're following Ross Poldark, who has just returned home after serving on the front in the Americas, fighting for the British, and now he's trying to revive his fortunes, and he comes home to basically derelict mines and his father being dead, and his sweetheart is now engaged to his cousin. So I think there is a lot of really interesting dynamics in here. You learn a lot about the gentry in that time, but you also feel connected to these characters, and it's a rags to riches story too, which I really appreciate. I love the Melza as a character. I love the progression, and we get to see all the stories of Ross, Melza, and a bunch of broad spanning characters alongside their children. It's an intergenerational story, which is always really fun for me. So this is a favorite series of mine for sure. I also love the Saga series. That is like a sci-fi slash fantasy intergalactic story, and it follows two people, one from a moon and one from a planet. They're basically at war with each other, these two rival societies, and they end up falling in love and have a child, and they're on the run to try to protect their family. This is one that I've talked about recently, so I don't want to dive too much into this, but it is one that I really connect to. I love the found family aspects to it, and I love just how humorous and relatable each of the volumes is. I also really enjoyed the Red Queen series. This follows a young woman named Mary Barrow who's living in a society of reds and silvers, and basically there's kind of a caste system there, but people have been divided into either reds or silvers. The silvers are the elite. They're the only people that are supposed to have like supernatural abilities, and the reds are like supposed to be common people without these abilities. But Mare discovers that she does have some special abilities even though she is a red, and this leads to a lot of intrigue, political upheaval, and so much going on in the story. I love this series a lot. I really connected with Victoria Aveyard's writing, and I appreciated how Mare goes on this journey of discovery, of learning about herself, and trying to challenge the system that has oppressed her and her family and so many different people. So I would say this is another great series to pick up as well. Okay, the next prompt asks, what is a series that you're most excited to finish? I had to think a little bit about this one, but I think I'm most eager to finish Sunrise on the Reaping, the whole Hunger Games series. Technically, Sunrise on the Reaping and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes are prequels, so they're not officially part of the trilogy, but I still consider them to be part of the same series. So I'm most excited to finish the series and read both Ballad and Sunrise, hopefully both of them in 2026. I just really need to get both Coriolanus Snow's backstory in that book and Haymitch's, and I think that Haymitch's story will really make me cry and break me down. I read a little bit of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I struggled with it the first time, and I was enjoying it the second time, but just never saw it through. So I'm hoping that this will be finally the year that I do see it through, even though I kind of have a familiarity with how the book ends and all that because I did see the film in theaters. I'm looking forward to continuing my read of that and then rewatching all of the films in anticipation of the new Sunrise on the Reaping film coming out in November. I do want to finish this book before that movie comes out at the end of the year. The next prompt asks, what is a series that you're most excited to start? And I think I'm most eager to start the A Number in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. I read All My Rage in 2025, absolutely adored that book, and gave it a 5-star rating and ranked it as my number 1 position book. So I think it was my favorite book of the year. So as you can tell, I'm really highly anticipating anything that Sabaa Tahir has written. Her first series is the A Number in the Ashes Quartet, and I've just heard nothing but good things about her fantasy novels. That's where so many people first fell in love with her writing, and I'm just excited to dive into this world. We're following Laia and Elias in this one. Laia is basically like a slave in this empire, and she's been taught not to challenge everything in there, and she ends up meeting Elias, who is like this fine soldier. He's supposed to be very militaristic and supportive of this empire, but secretly he's its most unwilling, and apparently their destinies will be intertwined in this story. I think this will be really interesting to dive into and see what my thoughts end up being on it, especially as it's so well beloved. I'm super eager to dive into this, and I'm hoping to read the entire series by the end of 2026. Okay, the next prompt asks, what is a book that you predict will be a favorite? So I had a hard time choosing what book I thought this would be. I went through a few different things in my head and looked through my shelves and my Goodreads and tried to figure out what I thought could be a 5-star read for me. And I ultimately decided on this book. It's The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This, I think, could be a 5-star read for me. It's a historical fantasy, which that's already a major plus. And we're following Nina, who lives in a society called Losail, and she's like a notable socialite, but she has these magical powers, and she's trying to control them and just comport with the society, fit in with things, but her telekinesis has made her stand out, and she ends up meeting someone who is very similar to her and starts falling in love with him. He has a talent and a gift which charms admiring audiences, and Nina is trying to figure out how to be this well beloved and find a way to use her power for good. And I think this could be a fun one. I believe this could be a favorite for me because it has all of those elements that make a book successful for me. It's a historical fantasy. We are set in a past time period and we're dealing with debutantes in society, which I really enjoy reading about. And we have telekinesis powers, which I think could be very interesting and unique to learn about. So hopefully this doesn't disappoint and it lives up to my expectations. I've also heard great things about Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing just in general, so I think this could end up being a favorite and possibly even a 5-star book for me. The next prompt asks, what is your favorite looking book? So this will be your favorite book cover or special edition, and I'm gonna go with Aladdin and the Arabian Nights. This is my edition of it. It's so beautiful. It's like blue and it's got some gold on it. I love this one to pieces. There's quite a few in my collection that I'm obsessed with and I think are beautiful, but this one I think has to be my favorite. I just love how many gold elements there are in this and the beautiful like Arabian night sky. That whole backdrop is stunning with the magic carpet. And I've always been intrigued by the story of Aladdin, so that makes me so excited to read this. I think even the back is beautiful and it says open sesame, and I just can't wait to read this. I'm a little bit nervous just to pick this one up and actually read it because it's so stunning and I don't want to damage the book. I just love the gold foiling on the edges as well, and we even have like a cloth bound bookmark that's attached to the book, which is purple. I love this book to bits. I was so excited to receive this as a birthday gift, and I think it's one of my most beautiful and prized possessions in my collection. The next prompt asks, if you could go buy a book right now, what would you buy just for fun? This is a tricky one. There's quite a few things that I would be interested in. I always have a long list, so trying to choose one book will be tough. I think I'll go with Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I love these Studio Ghibli movies so much. I've seen a couple of Studio Ghibli movies and really adored them, so I think this could be a book that I would end up loving. I think it's beautiful with the moving castle and how we are following Sophie, who has this great misfortune of being the eldest of 3 daughters, and she is destined to fail miserably if she ever wants to leave home and seek her fate. She's kind of seeking an adventure for herself and trying to find a life outside of everything that she's ever known. She ends up attracting the ire of the Witch of the Waste and finds herself under a horrid spell, which transforms her into an old lady. And her only chance at breaking the spell and kind of returning back to her life is by finding this moving castle in the hills and going there and striking a bargain with Howl, who is a fire demon that lives in this castle. I think that it's really fun. It's a cool little fantasy story, and there's a little quest that happens here, which is very exciting. Like I mentioned, I love the movie so much, so I think this would be a top contender. If I were to see this in the store, I'd probably pick it up right now. And then the final prompt asks, what is your favorite Bookish merch that you own and your favorite shops right now that you like? So I really love Bookish t-shirts. I'm currently wearing one that says Ardently Admired. This was like Jane Austen themed, and I love it so much. I also have this mug that says introvert, extrovert, bookturet, so go away, I'm reading. I love this so much to bits. I love Bookish mugs, t-shirts, socks, pretty much any kind of Bookish merch. I love tote bags as well. And I'm trying to think, some of my favorite shops are like Coffee and Characters, Steamy Lit, I really like. I don't have a ton of Bookish merch, so there's not a ton of like brands and shops that I can really tell you about, but I also really like Needles Riddles for their book sleeves. I think they're a lot of fun, and they have so many cool patterns. I have a couple of theirs, and I really enjoy them. I also really love Bookish stickers and bookmarks, and I have so many of those, but I don't think a lot of those shops are still operating now, so I don't want to mention them or like talk about those in case they're not and you're unable to get them. But those are just some of my favorite Bookish items. I love these so much, and I'll leave a few of my favorite Bookish merch sites in the description, including Coffee and Characters and Steamy Lit. And then finally, of course, I will be tagging a few people that I'd love to see take this on. Thank you so much once again to Isabel, Michelle, and David for all tagging me to do this. I'm sorry it's taken me a little bit of time to get around to this tag, but I'm looking forward to catching up with some remaining tags that I have and slowly making my way through and making these videos because I think it's a lot of fun and it's a great way to engage. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know some of your responses to these prompts. I'd love to hear them. What's your favorite bookish merch and what are some of your favorite books from different eras in your life? Thank you for watching, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. I hope that you're doing well, and I'll see you for another video soon. Bye!